Hey, glory to Jesus Christ. Glory forever. This is Father Anthony and my fool head. Hey, check out that new graphic that Warren made for me. He updated the old one. He added some airborne troopers there. And I think it always had the 42 infinity symbol. And then now you've got the soldier there. And of course the UFOs, and the thing that is the center of my life, the cross. So great to have you here, and great to be with you. So, and this is my home. So welcome to my home in Hartwell, Georgia. It's been a good week. I usually do this on Saturday mornings, and tomorrow morning, for me, Saturday morning, I will be out of town driving, and I'm just not ready to do an in-car thing. If you want to know what that would be like, you can go to my podcast, Orthoanalytica Podcast, and you can listen to it was like an hour and a half conversation that Deacon Michael Abramson and I had on our way to Waynesville to serve liturgy there. And it was good. It was good. We solved all the problems. They're all there, right there. All you got to do is listen to it. All the problems, life, the universe, and everything, solved. There you go. We could just replay that every time. So instead of not doing it at all or trying to do it in the car, I'm doing it today. So I don't have coffee. Instead, I've got my mug. My wife got me this a couple years ago. I'm a member of the Old Man's Club. And it was my birthday on Tuesday. So I'm actually went, another year deeper into that Old Man's Club. And so what is it that's in the mug? It is a mix of Diet Pepsi and diet, what's it called? Tonic water. Tonic water? Yeah, tonic water. Yeah, with the quinine in it. That's my secret. I haven't got the COVID. And it's because I drink about a liter of diet tonic water every day. So the combination of the artificial sweeteners preserving my insides and the quinine, and neither one of them are, I suspect, doing much of anything for me. It's all part of the humor. But perfect correlation. And once you start, I'm not going to stop now. Actually, I started drinking tonic water before the whole COVID ever started. And now I drink it fondly in memory of my dear departed friend, Father Basil Zafaruka. And one of the things that we would enjoy together would be occasionally a gin and tonic. And yeah, I miss him. So today, I'm going to continue basic conversation that we started a couple weeks ago. And last week talked about worldviews and why it was so important to get it right, and the importance of, first impressions as an example of confirmation bias. And if once we adopt a worldview, confirmation bias kicks in and we see everything according to the frames that worldview offers, and we notice the data that supports it, and we discount or just don't notice the data that does not. In worldviews, it's impossible to live without a worldview. You have to have one. So the whole point is to adopt a worldview, the Orthodox Christian worldview, stripped of any of the worldly things. And that's rare. So instead of supplementing our worship and our prayer with political talk shows and things like that, to supplement it at least a substantial part of our time just in quiet appreciation. And quiet isn't just the absence of noise, right? It's if you are in Christ, then it's a positive. There's grace. So think words like peace. Peace is not just the absence of violence, right? Peace, when lived in the heart, when they lived in the Christian heart and lived in Christian community, it's a positive force. And so the best way to experience that really is in quiet relationship with the Lord. And spend time doing that, because when you've got an entertainment and a news media, to include a social media, who's very the mechanism that it works by is division, is sowing division. That's how you get people to keep coming back, is you divide people. And they're so good at it. And it's not just the mainstream media and the media of the right and the media of the far left. It's also, so often our own Christian media, right, does the same thing. And, we need to be wise as serpents, right? But we also need to be peaceful first. And I think it's not just a step, I was peaceful a year ago, so now I'm okay, to just have a steady diet of Hollywood entertainment and YouTube videos and talk shows, and I'm fine, because I go to liturgy and I pray. No, you're really not. Not if you're like the rest of us. It has to be constant. So anyways, this is My Fool Head, and the conceit of the show is we get a retired military intelligence officer, a politologist, and a priest together to talk about whatever comes into my fool head. That's my Sybil. Yeah, and just to start out, man, I want to tell you something I'm thankful for. So this week, I had a bit of a curveball thrown at me. And let's see, I think it was, what day was it? No, it was Monday. Yeah, so Monday's a long day at school for me. I get done, got out of class, about 6:30? And I go to my car, ready to head home. And my battery was dead. Like, completely dead. Like, nothing. No click, 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 click. No dome light. No, nothing. Nothing, just dead. I'm like, oh, man. Great. So I called the parking services, because I'm at a University of Georgia lot. They're not there. There's nobody there. So I call public safety, and they say, oh yeah, our officers are not allowed to do that because it'll ruin their cars. Like, dude, really? Okay. So, I call AAA. And AAA, they say, yeah, they'll have someone there by 11. I'm like, okay. 11 o'clock. All right. And that's good. And, I'm fine with that. I got no problem sitting somewhere for hours, especially when I have a book by Brandon Sanderson. Is that his name? Sanderson? Brandon Sanderson? I was on the second or third book. So, it's like 55 hours long. So, I got something to do, unless my phone dies. But I'm not looking forward to it, And so I go ahead and I open up I drive an old Volvo, and in fact, it's Father Basil's old car. I bought it from him. And it's an old Volvo S60 2070 black 4-door sedan. And do you know where the battery is there? Yeah. The battery's in the trunk. So, yeah, you're supposed to, when you get a jump, you're supposed to do it in the front, but yeah, I don't understand the math. So I just open up the trunk. I've done it before. And I uncover it. And just to make sure everybody gets the idea, I hang the jumper cables out over the back so it's clear what's going on here, right? And then I pop the hood and lift the hood up. Universal sign of, hey man, I could use a little help here. And I don't want to freak people out, so there's not a lot of traffic going on because it's late. For campus, it's late. A lot of foot traffic, but not a lot of car traffic. And so I'm just hanging out there, leaning on the car, all in black, hat, collar, all that stuff. And people are just kind of every once in a while somebody will drive by and, I'll nod at them and they'll nod back and they'll drive on. And then finally somebody stopped. So it was about an hour and a half. Hey man, you need some help? And I'm like, yeah, I could use a jump. So it was real quick. I mean, it just took a second. The battery's fine. And I thanked him. His name's Ryan. So God bless you, Ryan. Appreciate your help. And, one of the things that happens when you're in a situation like that is there's temptations to judge, right? Especially when the past Sunday was the reading that we had, right? And the reading that we had on the new calendar was the Good Samaritan, right? The Good Samaritan. And, so it's hard not to, there goes, are you a priest or a Levite? Priest or Levite? Priest or Levite, right? But what it reminded me of, I really, that temptation did come up, but for one, I don't know if I'd want my kids stopping for some old dude on the side of the road, oh yeah, you're a priest. Yeah, you're giving out candy too, right? So, it's fine, right? But I also, another thing that I believe, so it's not everybody's calling to stop and help people like that because of risk aversion and stuff. I get that. It's everyone's job to pray. And for all I know, every single person, when they drove by, they were praying for me. And that prayer was what softened Ryan's heart so that he would be the one, who does that. So don't poo-poo it. When you're driving by and you see someone you can't, for whatever reason, stop, pray. Lift them up honestly in prayer, okay, without hesitation. And if you know somebody who that's their calling is to help people, call them up, say, hey, there's a car on the side of the road, But for a lot of us, that really is our calling. There are people, and I think it's many of you, whose risk profile is such that you just don't worry about stuff like that. There's a risk profile where if there's a confusion in a crowd, you're going towards it, not away from it, right? It's if there's gunfire, you're moving towards it, not away. And if you're that way, be ready, right? And if you don't know that's you, well, maybe it is, right? Build some extra time into your trips. And maybe not the gunfire thing, I get that, okay? But stopping when someone's pulled off on the side of the road, this used to be a thing. Now I think we assume everybody's got a cell phone, so they're fine. They got it, they'll take care of them themselves. But like in this case, yeah, I had a cell phone, but I don't know anybody in Athens, Georgia. The closest person to me is an hour away in Hartwell. So I called my wife and I let her know. She says, well, I'll leave right now. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, I'm fine. You just stay there, right? So yeah, I had a cell phone, and that's the case a lot of times. You don't know what's going on. And what happens when you stop and you say, hey, need a hand? Even if they're like, no, I got it covered. You just made the world a better place. You participated in something called, like, I don't know what to call fellowship, right? You're participating in that pattern that God established for us and that we so often forsake, right? This isn't a homily. This is just good advice. So be the kind of person, if you've got that risk profile, that is prepared to stop and just does stop. Just build it into your routine. If I see this, I stop. Because what we found, what social scientists have found, is that there's a kind of monkey see, monkey do thing. And they've even run this on clerics, right? The thing where you have somebody in distress, and if nobody is paying attention to that person, nobody continues to pay attention to them. Everybody walks by, right? Even people, they even did it on a group of clerics who were talking about compassion. And then they set it up so that they had to change buildings, and they walk by someone who's in distress, but the plants in the scenario would just keep walking by it, and to set that social priming, to set in that priming mechanism, monkey see, monkey do. And so the clerics, who were the honest parts of the experiment, not the plants, so they just walked on by. And the way you get out of that, you're not going to stop being human. You're not going to stop being fallen, right? Your psychology kind of is what it is, but there are ways you can work around it until we're perfected, right? And one of those ways is your self-identification. I am the kind of person, I am the person who stops. I am the one who stops. And if you're going to be that person, you build a little bit of extra time, or you're willing to be late when you're going somewhere. And you have the kit in your trunk, stuff that you know how to use and that you're ready to share. And that can be basic. You don't have to be a mechanic. Set a long jumper cables, or one of those, $100 battery starters. You know what you need. A compressor, jack, that kind of stuff. Because don't assume that everybody knows how to use that. Even here in the South, it's not the case that everybody knows how to use it. And we're about a generation behind on this whole modernization thing. So, I'm encouraged. So I hope you're hearing me. I'm encouraging you to be that person that stops, unless there's a reason for you not to. Be the person who stops. Because even if, in my case, on Monday, even if it was the case that AAA was like on its way, and Ryan stops, and he says, "Hey, dude, you need a hand?" And I say, "No, but I do appreciate it." Hey, look, it's not that he's done something good and he gets an ego point, right? No, it's he feels joy at having done something that is a step along the way. Capital T, capital W, the way, right? And I get a sanctification point, right? For being a recipient of someone's sacrifice, right? It's this is the way that it's done, and I love that we are getting so many people interested in orthodoxy from this JP pipeline, right? Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Pajot pipeline, because the Logos is so much a part of how I understand creation and the pattern. Right, we are part of this pattern, and so Jordan, he does a great job going through the Old Testament and pulling out some of its eternal lessons. Right, he's missing the light of Christ part, but man, he goes deep. He goes about as deep as you can go without that, and it just feeds your hunger for more. So then people find Jonathan Pajot, and he talks about symbolism and how the Logos and this pattern replicates itself within our culture, and how this theme of left and right hand and chaos and order, how these are part of reality, and they're part of our symbolism, and there's a good way to do it that leads us towards perfection. And there's a level to which that just fits. Anyone who hears it and is listening just recognizes something fundamentally true about that, and I like that. But here's the thing. Yes, it's true in iconography. Yes, it's true when you study the scripture and you study the great theologians. It's all there. Yes, it's true when you're understanding theology. It's all there. But here's what we're called to do. Here's how to immanentize that pattern, immanentize the Logos. It's relationships. And you may not ever have the skill to be an iconographer, to be an architect, to be, a biblical scholar. But all of us are called to do this subcreation at the level of relationship, to replicate that pattern through relationship. Be you can be that kind of artist right now. Right now. For some people, it's going to look different than other. I mean, I get introvert, extrovert. I get gruff versus friendly. All that stuff I understand, right? But every single one of those is part of this relationship pattern. We're all part of this choir, if you will, that's meant to sing in harmony. And the way it works is through these moments, these opportunities. What is it that the moment requires? How can grace be brought to this moment? And it's in connection with others. Whether that's offering up a prayer for the other. Look how that works, right? Here's me seeing a person in need, offering love towards them, prayer towards God, right? It connects us all in this beautiful pattern, this ecclesiology. And, if you stop, then it's fully aware. I had a friend, he got on to me. We were in like the 10th grade. And someone sneezed, and I quietly said, "God bless you," right? Offered a little prayer for that person. And my friend, he goes, "What would you do that for?" I said, "Well, I was, offering a prayer." "Well, you need to say it out loud, or else it doesn't matter." I'm like, "What?" What? So for him, it was this social interaction, that people, I don't know what it was, but for me, I was like, no, it's grace, right? It's an honest prayer, and bringing attention to it can actually, bring other things like ego into it and stuff and also might make them feel self-conscious and all this kind of stuff. So, anyways, we had a disagreement about how this works, and I remember that he joined our youth group his senior year, our church youth group his senior year, so he'd have something to add to his resume, right? And he was brilliant. I'm not going to name him, I'm not going to give you more details because he's a good man, and I'm going to say something kind of critical about him. He's in many ways better than I am. So went on to go to medical school. I think he did either Doctors Without Borders or one of those equivalent things. So, I mean, just a really, the beautiful thing is he gave his life to Christ, and then he lives like he means it, right? But we only had one conversation as adults. I heard that he I think it was when people my age first got on Facebook, right? And he put on how he was working, how he was part of a new ministry. So I IM'd him or emailed him or something. And I said, "Hey man, that's fantastic. You've given your life to Christ, and now, you're doing this ministry work. What does it look like?" And he wrote back. He said, "Well, what we're doing is we're creating intentional community where all of us are caring for each other, and we worship the Lord Jesus Christ together in community. We worship together, and we actually care for one another." And so I wrote him back. I said, "Oh wow," because I was a new priest, right? So I wrote him back. I said, "Oh wow, that's what I'm doing. We just call it parish." He never wrote me back. Because of course to his approach, as an Orthodox priest, I was everything that the church was not, right? So anyways, I hope that we do get to spend some time together so we can actually get to know each other, and there you go. All right, but that has nothing to do with the theme of today's show, and we're almost halfway through it. That's what happens, right? But I hope you get my point, because about this patterning, because this is the most important thing you'll ever hear from me. Studying theology is fun, and people fall in love with it, and studying iconography is wonderful, and I'm in love with it as well. I'm teaching a class right now on ecclesial art. I call it the theology of beauty, and today we talked for 2.5 hours about iconography. It was our third class on it, right? And fantastic. Love it. But the actual theology that was going on was my relationship with the people in the class. Do you hear me? Yes, I'm teaching these ideas. I'm exposing them to these ideas that are important. And the contemplation of iconography leads you to something greater. Yes, absolutely. But the main thing that was happening in that moment was less the information being shared than the relationship being developed. Because that iconography, I'm teaching about iconography, right? So it's one off even from the contemplation or praying before icons. Okay. Now the study of ideas can be sacramental, it can be graceful, I get that. But the conversation that I'm having, my witness to them, their witness to me, my sacrificial offering to them, their reception of it, this is the pattern. Firsthand. Not talking about doing the pattern, not talking about doing the logos, but living the logos. That's it. Okay? So, and that's always the case, right? So, no matter what I'm teaching, I'm very much aware that the most important thing that I'm doing is I'm showing these young men how to do priest, how to do man, how to do conversation, how to do love. All of these things. How to live on the way. And I want to make sure that they know iconography and that they understand the theology of music, the theology of architecture, all of this, and the theology of beauty, the deeper theology of beauty. And we cover all those things, to the T's. But what I hope even more is that I can set an example that allows them to grow into good men. And they're already good young men, right? But if you think that, a 25-year-old has as much to share about being a man as a 50-year-old man, 54-year-old man, I mean, maybe some do, some certainly do. Hey, don't let them despise your age. Yeah, okay, fine. And maybe you're hearing my ego coming out. But, the graybeards who are listening, step up. Step up. Let the way that Christ has molded you shine, right? Be that example for the young people. This is by the way, there's a psychological need. So if you're not doing it, the psychology suggests that you will be incomplete. This is the thing that happens along this level of age. Now, everybody's different and stuff, but in general, at this stage of development, you are giving back. That is the primary thing. You're no longer striving for position. You're not trying to prove yourself. Hey, look, we're here. It's time for us to give back, right? Okay. So what I told you I was going to talk about was a little bit about Analyst Notebook. And I gave you a little story about how we got this program way back in the dark ages where you could code, you could create little spots in the database. You could give them a name, and then you'd write down their attributes. And then you would put them on the screen in a network. And the program would draw those networks, and you can move them around, and you could identify nodes, you could identify patterns that you wouldn't be able to recognize just on its own if you code it well. But garbage in, garbage out, and some things that they're connected on are fairly superficial. Like if you code everybody on male, female, that's an important part of someone's identity. But you can't then create a conspiracy out of just because that person, and that person are connected, right? Oh, I found the secret. And I told you about this young analyst that he thought he'd figured out, the Thai, there was a secret conspiracy going on between the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan and the Taliban because, they were Sunni Muslim, right? I mean, because Analyst Notebook makes it look like you've found a thing, right? This is a thing that they all have in common. It's crazy. But this is what our mind does, by the way. So now I'm using Analyst Notebook as a metaphor. We connect dots. And worldviews tell us how to connect the dots. They make some patterns more apparent than others. Okay, so if my worldview is that creeping totalitarianism, right? And it's on my radar, but it's not part of my worldview. It's something I'm concerned about, but it doesn't define my interaction with the news and so on. It's just one of multiple hypotheses, multiple things that I keep an eye on. But if you're convinced, no, there's creeping totalitarianism, there's a conspiracy of X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to notice it. All the data will line up in a way that supports that. And there's data out there, right? Here's the problem, though. That doesn't mean it's true. Just because the data lines up, because you can create a convincing story based on what the news is giving you, and the way it resonates with your expectations, the expectations that the real world doesn't mean it's true. It means that it's defensible, right? And it certainly doesn't mean it's useful. Because there are other worldviews that also have their facts, and they frame them a different way so that it supports their worldview. And so, in that case, if yours is true, theirs is too. Okay? And you can say, they're wrong. Well, no, wait a second. They've got their data, you've got your data. And it may, even if your data could all be true, it's just that you're connecting them in a different way. And this is a huge problem. The way it's supposed to work is, so if you're really concerned about creeping totalitarianism and somebody else is really concerned about racism and power relationships, inequality, that you're in conversation with each other. And because you are able to point out their blind spots and they are able to point out your blind spots, right? You're also maximizing different virtues, as we talked about last time, right? And so it should be a conversation, not where you're trying to convince them to become liberty loving and they're trying to convince you to become equality loving, right? That's not the point. The point is that we're wired differently, and so we see things differently, but together we can muddle our way through to something that approximates something better than that comes up with something better than we can do on our own, right? And this is a very superficial level. It's a mechanical level, right? And it's the kind of thing that you got in the Federalist Papers. This is what they were describing. It's Jonathan Rauch's Constitution of Knowledge, right? And but we're not listening to each other. We don't. In fact, part of the data is that the other person has bad motives and is either brainwashed or, I don't know, stupid. Brainwashed, stupid, or agitators for the New World Order or something like that. And then you can connect dots, you can find things in their lives to point out how they're disingenuous and they're pushing an agenda. No, that's not the way it goes. Right? That's not if this is going to work. So, people look at me, right? And if they want to, they can create a story about me that makes me into an enemy of their cause. So if someone is pro-equality, so there's someone on what is now the left, and they are, we'll say woke, we'll use that word, right? And they look at me because I'm a priest, I'm a retired Army guy, I'm born and raised in the South. I belong to the Sons of the American Revolution, and it's not hard to find these things out about me, right? And you can say, this guy, he's an opponent of what we believe. And so when they hear me talk, if they read my sermons or listened to my sermons or any of these talks, they would be able to hear them in a way and read them in a way that shows how I am disingenuous, how I am perpetuating the hegemonic power system of white control. Right? Okay. Yep. You can do that. You absolutely can. I don't think it would be all that hard to do. Right? But then someone from the right who is anti-woke and pro-freedom, anti-totalitarian, and is concerned about global conspiracies, can look at me and they say, "Oh, he was in the intelligence community, right? That connects him with this. Oh, he's an academic. That connects him with this. Oh, he's under the EP. That connects him with this," right? So they create this whole narrative that proves, they connect the dots in a way that prove that I am a conspirator against freedom, right? Against the church. Yeah. You can do this to anybody. If you, O Lord, will mark iniquities, who could stand? If you, O Lord, will mark iniquities, who could stand? Right? And the people who know me, they that know that I'm just, Father Anthony Perkins, or I'm just Doug. Just a dude doing the best he can, loving Christ, loving his family, loving his country. Right? And how is it that Christ sees us? How is it that you expect Christ to see someone? Okay. The way that I understand it, it's neither one of those things. The light of Christ is, certainly he sees everything. And man, he sees bad stuff about me that'll never show up even on social media. Right? I'm proud. I'm selfish. Oh, terrible things, right? But he sees me in the eyes of love, right? Sees me, and I don't know. I'm not even a bat, so how can I know how he sees me? I just know, if you, O Lord, will mark iniquities, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, right? He certainly acts towards me with mercy, and I think we should do that, because we get so concerned about whatever the thing that we're trying to maximize in the world, freedom, equality, the Constitution, even the church, right? Correct theology, all of these things. We're so concerned about those that we forget that the best way to do theology, the best way to do freedom, the best way to do equality, everything that is worth doing, the best way to do it is to do it as part of the way. And the way that we do the way is by developing honest relationships with people. Honest, charitable, merciful, true relationships with people. And here's what happens when I'm going to give you an image to help understand how dangerous this is for us to connect dots about people in a way that damns them. So if I take you and I label all your attributes and I connect you to these diabolical schemes, right? And then I hear you speak, and all I can hear is this this demonic voice, disingenuous, misleading, undermining, all these words that we can put into it. What I have done is, I have put something into my head that will destroy my mind. What we are made to do, the way that we perfect our mind. Let's look at the example of the icon. I study the icon. This is, an eschatological image of the person, if it's a saint, of the angel. It is the image of the Logos, Christ, right? And I bring into my mind an image of that person, in their best, right, in the case of a saint. And then I read the accounts of the saints. The hagiographic material is set up in a certain way, right, so that the data that populates my understanding of the personality and the rhythms of that saint's lives are a certain way. You ever wonder why that is? So that when they're in my mind, it actually it adds to the grace, right? It's part of the patterning of my mind. When I take someone and I demonize them, I take them into my mind, and I just paint them with the most horrid colors, and I describe their life in the most terrifying way, most diabolical way. I have put a demon into my mind. It's a lie, for one. It's an incredible act of unlove, anti-love, uncharity, right? And you don't think that has an effect, that there's a possessive effect to that? I know that even when I was an intel analyst, all day I would study what Islamist jihadists were doing. These takfirists, these violent people, the Taliban and others. And so, I had pictures of some of them, right? But I certainly had descriptions of their lives and what they were doing and what they were about. And I tried to keep any kind of prejudice or anything I tried to keep it as objective as possible. But, these are people who were willing, capable of doing terrible things. And just having that in my mind was difficult. I tried to keep it compartmentalized, right? So I could go home and just forget about them. But the toll of that, year after year after year, and then going there, it was pretty heavy. And when emotions get involved, so for example, if you're deployed, especially if you're a trigger puller, right, then the demonization that happens in war, this is one of the reasons why St. Basil said, hey, look, for pastoral reasons, let's have this person stay away from communion while they heal from this, right? Even though actually being a soldier is something that the church blesses, it recognizes the psychological, the spiritual toll that happens, and that when that person is brought back into not just civilized society, but onto this back into harmony, that it's going to take some time, some healing time. But what we're doing, we are creating that kind of psychology through our diet. Instead of taking, what we would do is we would have all these feeds of information, right? And you would have all your different intelligence sources, your SIGINT, your IMINT, your imagery intelligence, your human intelligence, all this stuff. And we try to figure out what's going on, right? So constant streams. That's what's going on Twitter. That's what's going on social media, is this constant stream of, even if you're staying objective, if you're on political Twitter or theological Twitter, then you are typically, the ones that get passed the most are the ones that are the most divisive, right? That's the algorithm. That's how it makes its money. That's how it keeps people addicted. That's why they come back for more and more and more. The negative response is much more addictive than the positive response, and so that's the way it works. And media knows this. That's how they're based on advertising. So, they understand psychology, so they can make money. So what we've done is we've created a situation of war psychologically, without the overt violence. Although the myth of today is that words are violence, just as much as actions. But psychologically, we are involving people. We are getting them involved in this kind of demonization. With the Lord, there is forgiveness. Not with us. Not when we're on Twitter. Not when we're on social media. Not when we're on our Discord chats. Right? No, instead, we're participating in this diabolical plan to divide. Remember, the nations were divided for a specific purpose at Babel, but in Pentecost, we're all meant to be brought together. And we're just doing a terrible job of it. And we're destroying our minds by our participation in this. We have people who come to find out, are reasonable people in our midst. They have a different worldview, but their intentions are virtuous. They may have they may have stacked their virtues incorrectly, right? But if you can't see the good in your neighbor, then, you're not walking along the way. If you can't see the good in your enemy, you aren't walking along the way. I've told you this is one of the hardest theological points for me to bring into my walk. And for me, the one who pushed me the hardest on it was St. Dionysius. And his point that, even the fallen angels, right? And we don't pray for them. Okay, hey, I get all that. His point was not that. His point was a theological point, that there is still good there. Really? All right, so maybe he's exaggerating to make his point. I don't know. But what I learned from that is I need to really learn how to love my enemy. Okay, so my first piece of advice is be the person who stops. Be the person who says, can I give you a hand? Do you need a hand? How can I help? Because that always builds connections. Okay? My second one is don't demonize your neighbor. Don't even demonize your enemy. It's too easy. When you hear something that is, oh man, it's so easy to believe when you hear terrible things about people you don't like or people you don't agree with. What I want you to do is keep that introspection. Some of you are in Lent now. You're in Advent. So you're slowing down your life, right? You're paying more attention to your thoughts. You're governing your thoughts more. So watch your thoughts. And when it's easy to believe something bad, we've just seen this, man. People are eating some crow, and they need to eat some more. About Kyle Rittenhouse, is that his name? The way, I'm not defending everything he did, but the way he was demonized was unjust. And that did not allow people on the left to see his actions objectively. On the right, the same thing happens, right? Lionized him. Can't see his actions objectively. What the law is trying to do is the way the law works is one of these constitutions of knowledge, right? It doesn't require that you convert the other side. It requires that both sides present their understanding. And then a neutral parties, right? A jury of your peers and the judge, right? Come up with a decision, right? There's a reason it's set up that way, right? We are meant to, and I'm not saying that, this comes from the Bible or something like that, but the getting together to talk about knowing that discernment comes from people with different talents, different perspectives, talking through things, that's the way to move on. Because we're short of bringing everyone to perfection, right? If everyone were perfect, we wouldn't need juries. Yeah, but it scares me when somebody says, oh, we have a technology that figures out if someone's guilty. I don't trust that as far as I can throw it, okay? Not even if I programmed it. So be charitable, right? Don't let the demons of your imagination possess your mind, pollute your mind, chaotize, make your mind chaotic, right? because you'll destroy yourself. Spend some time in quiet, basking in the love and the Lord of the Lord, letting Him see you, letting Him care for you. Just relax into that. And then come out and offer that same grace that He offered you to the people in your life, right? To the friends and enemies that you're in regular contact with and that you hear about on the news and so on. When you hear something that is easy to believe, say, why is this easy to believe? And your first instinct, you're going to stay superficial, and you're going to say, well, because of these facts line up and support it. And that's when someone is like that, I know that I'm dealing with somebody who isn't spiritually aware. They'll just give you, I know this is true because this fact. Okay. Why is it so easy for you to focus on those facts and not the facts that these other people are bringing up? Okay, because I'm right and they're wrong. No, rise up a little bit above. Okay, you don't have to defend your tribal identity. Let it go. You know, we're going through that process of letting go, right? Letting it go. You don't need to hold on to any of that. Let's just figure out, why is it that it's so easy for you to believe that you're right and they're wrong? Okay, I'm not trying to convince you they're right. I said in my amazement, everyone is a liar. Everyone's full of it. Everyone is imposing their own worldview on the facts, right? I don't just want us to be warring tribes at this superficial level, that together we can kind of work out and muddle our way through to some kind of better future. I want us to transcend that. I want us to go beyond that. I want us to be the pastor of one another, to actually listen and learn from one another. Yeah? To do it at the next level. A next level that involves charity. And I'd like for others to go along with me on that. Because I'll tell you what I'm sick of. I'm sick of the name calling. I'm sick of people finding excuses to, these connections on Analyst Notebook to connect the people they don't like with the devil, right? And connect the ones their tribe to the angels. I'm sick of that. I'm so sick of the tit for tat. You said this, they said, look what they did. Can you believe this? Look, there's evidence. Did you hear what? Stop it. I said in my amazement, every person is a liar. And just because you can dress up your lies in theological language and you can find some, saint who said something that's convenient to your cause, you know what they can too. We've got to do better than that. Doesn't mean everybody's right. Okay? But it means that we ourselves are full of crap. And until we let go of our need to be right, don't need to be right. Just relax in the Lord. I could care less about what your attitudes are about politics, economics, ranking of virtues in this moment, right? We can talk about that later. What I want you to do, I want you to know what's true forever. What is true forever, and then participate in that. Be a part of that. These other things, yeah, okay, good job. You did the math right. Yeah, you're on the right team. Congratulations. That's going to last for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And because of the way you did it, the process that you used, the self-congratulations, the self-justifications, the demonization of the other, the lack of charity towards the other, it keeps you from seeing and participating in the things that are forever true, that are ontologically, capital T, true. It's not the case that you get a series of facts correct and that trajectory leads you to heaven. It is the fact that a way of being in peace, in harmony, in the Lord, grows within you the capacity to be a part of that eternal truth through Christ. If you do it the wrong way, even theology becomes your enemy, because we use it in a way that, just damns us to hell. So be careful out there. and kind of, let it go. Do a little bit of apophatic theology, right? You've studied apophatic theology. You've read the books. Now do it. Let go of your politics. Let go of tracking all the indicators that you're right and they're wrong. Let go of your conviction that they're wrong. Okay, you can bring it back. You can bring it back. It's just like when we do the apophatic theology thing and we're playing with words, right? Let go of this word about God. Let go of this word about God. Now just be with God, right? Let go of all that stuff and just be in the presence of truth. Okay? And if you've done that, then even if we disagree about which virtue is prominent in a certain discussion, and even if we disagree about which facts should inform our analysis the most, the conversation between us will be different. It'll be generous, and I don't mean generous in the sense that I'm just going to give up, or you're just going to give up. And this isn't a tool of manipulation, where it's just a secret way to make you more like me. No, I don't think it removes our differences. I think we're still going to be wired differently, but those differences become a gift to us in our relationship, rather than an excuse to divide us. Our different risk profiles. Okay, some of you're really worried about some things. Your fear is a big motivator for you. Hey, I get that. Whether it's fear of New World Order or it's fear of the coronavirus, hey, I understand that. My risk profile is different. Not afraid. I'm concerned. Doesn't motivate me. It doesn't motivate me enough to get me to, to take a whole lot of actions in either direction. Okay. If we both, you with who are tracking more things than I am, if we can move to that next level, right, then it's no longer fear that's motivating, it's concern, right? And it's no longer apathy that's motivating me. Okay? Hopefully it'll be peace, right? And so then we bring those things to conversation, and it doesn't become a thing that divides us. You become more peaceful. I become more discerning, right? And together we're honestly one fleshed, right? Marriage is the icon of the church. As one, as we can become one, and it's not a curse to either one of us. It's actually a blessing. But it's not going to happen until we let go of some of the things that our constant exposure to things like Twitter feeds and talk radio and TV news, and you can tell which news infosphere people are plugged into, right? But there's something else that's going on too, right? So you can tell if somebody's part of the mainstream one, if they're watching CNN, MSNBC, if they're watching maybe Fox, or if they're watching maybe Alex Jones. You can tell. But the main thing is you can tell that they're plugged in. The biggest difference is the people who are plugged into that stuff, and it's getting them spun up, and the people who aren't. That's the biggest difference, is people who are spun up about this stuff. And it defines them. It defines the way they interact with the world. It defines the way they interact with theology. All of this, they're what we call wrapped around the axle. Right? It's a beautiful image. Just spun up. Yeah, and people who aren't. Okay. Just chill out. That's my advice. And your advice to me can, hey, take things a little bit more seriously. Okay, I will. Come over. We'll have a beer. We'll talk about it. We'll figure out all the world's problems. But the important thing, and I'll conclude with this, is not whether we can come to some kind of perfect policy position or perfect understanding of who the important players are and what their motivations are. Because what we'll be doing at that point is we will be doing logos. We will be patterning perfection, not through our improved discernment, but through our participation in one another, through the love that we share. Okay? You get me? All right, y'all. That's enough of my fool head for this week. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And those of you who are have started your Pilipivka, your Advent Lent, blessed Lenting to you. I'll be joining you. I actually start with the new calendar, and then I finish with the old calendar, taking a break for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that's my way. I'm sure your way's different. I'm sure your way's much better. But until next time, Godspeed.